I had a very profound shift happen. I don't know if telling experience stories is all that useful, because everybody's got them, at least in this town. Everybody's got them, and I mean, I could swap stories, but I don't know how useful it is. So
we'll get into some stuff. I'm going to ask you some questions.
Oh, okay, okay.
You don't have to do it all now.
All right, fine.
Good. It's time for a little station break. My name is Rick Archer, and you're listening to Crew KRUU-LP 100.1 FM, the voice of Fairfield, Iowa, and beyond. We're talking with George and Mary Foster, and the name of the show is Awakenings. I'd like to ask each of you a question, and you can each answer it in your own way. And that is, if you kind of think back on your life, even going way back to childhood, were there any times when you had some kind of exceptional experience? I mean, I can remember things like that myself, lying out in the field looking at the stars or whatever. But I've often noticed that people who have had profound spiritual awakenings had some interesting stuff going on as children, but not necessarily. So maybe you could each take turns answering that one.
Yeah, not necessarily, Rick.
Okay, you're in that category?
In my case, I've got nothing to report.
How about you, Mary?
Well, I always had a fascination with infinity. Very close to science, and it was always something that tickled my mind to think of, would I ever know or experience infinity? But as a child, there's no way that you could, unless it was something that was in your family already, experience infinity or know it. And so it was something that I remember. And you had mentioned lying in the grass looking at the stars. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and the sky was quite filled with stars up there. And I remember many summer nights lying there just wondering, and of course, that
thinking that might be something more.
Yeah, always something more, and I think there was maybe a desire for feeling more fulfilled, because it was like there was always something missing.
So you mentioned that you learned meditation in 1969. How old were you then? If you don't mind my asking.
17.
Okay. And what motivated you to look into it?
I was with a group of people working at a resort camp in Wisconsin Dells, and the owner of the camp was Senator Murphy, who actually later on introduced a bill to the House of Representatives that was passed, just endorsing
right.
TM. So the whole family actually went to the first introductory lecture, and we were just so impressed with the people that gave the lecture. They seemed so together, so bright, and what they were saying was that we could have more happiness in our life, more creativity, more energy, better health, all these different things. And we're like, yeah, that's right up the alley, because we were into Whole Foods at that time.
Pretty good for 1969.
Yeah.
How about you, George?
Regarding what?
In terms of what initially attracted you to meditation and got you going, what was your motivation?
Oh, well, gosh. Well, I got into drugs a lot, psychedelic drugs.
I can relate.
Yeah, I did a lot of that, psychedelic drugs, because it was so fascinating, visually as well as conceptually. And you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, and after I had done, I don't know, maybe 5 years of that, I decided, then I was 20 years old, and then I decided that I really wanted reality, that I knew what altered reality was. I was totally familiar, and decided that I was really ready for the real thing. What is real? I was looking out a window, I'll never forget, I was looking out a window of a car and thinking about that I'm looking through a drug, I'm not looking at the real thing. And what is the real thing? I basically quit.
That's neat.
And and just at that time, my brother, Roger, my younger brother, had just learned TM and was beating me up every day about it. And it took me me about 6 months, and then I learned it, and I thought, yep, this is it.
Great. So we'll go back to Mary for a minute. So you learned to meditate, and was there anything sort of dramatic or remarkable about any change in your experience once you had learned, or was it like some people don't even notice if anything's happening, other people it knocks them off their feet, you know? So how was it with you?
I remember walking out from the instruction, it was in someone's home, and realizing that everything was so bright. I noticed a common experience with people, the contrast of getting that deep rest that TM offers. Maybe my eyes got a really good rest, I don't know, or physiology, but colors were really bright, and there was a clarity in the air, there was a sweetness that was palpable. And that's really what I noticed. I know there's been a lot of people that have had more dramatic, first days starting the program, but it was mine, and just slowly,
Yeah. And so how about you, George? Was there what was your initial impression?
Very dramatic.
Was it?
Very dramatic. The very first meditation, I tried to describe it to my teacher that I felt like I had eyes all the way around my head. So yeah, very dramatic. I was sold out fast.
Interesting. So I'm going back and forth here. This seems to be kind of working. So, so fast forwarding with you, Mary, I understand. Well, actually, time for another little station break. My name is Rick Archer, and you're listening to a new radio show on Crew FM called Awakenings. Crew is broadcasting at 100.1 FM and is the voice of Fairfield, Iowa, and beyond. So, Mary, and let me just add that the purpose of this show, in case you just tuned in, or the theme of this show, is that we're going to be interviewing people who have undergone what we might call a spiritual awakening, and we'll define that as being a permanent shift in the way they experience themselves in the world, as opposed to just a temporary experience which they might recount having had on some course or at some time or something, but a permanent shift which is perpetual, which lasts 24/7. So, Mary, now I know you pretty well, and I know that that we're talking about something that happened 40 years ago when you learned to meditate, and you had several children, you got married, you had several children, you probably went through various career things. I know that you have professional experience as a chef. And you also mentioned earlier in the interview that when you first met George, you had sort of lost sight of the goal. So did you kind of get caught up in the hurly-burly of life after you learned to meditate, having kids, doing this, doing that, and what was it that caused you to lose sight of the goal, and did you continue to meditate regularly, or did you to what extent did you lose sight of the goal?
Well, right after starting TM, which was in, I don't remember which month, I went pretty much immediately to a 1-month-long residence course in Eureka Arcata called Humboldt, which a lot of people may be familiar with that are listening. Yeah, you were there. So that was the very first course, and decided that I wanted to give this to others. So I came back home, worked for a whole year to save money up to go to the teacher training course to become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation, which I did, and then came back and again went to Humboldt, and then I moved to Madison, Wisconsin, and for some reason Madison was really saturated with TM teachers, so I gave a few courses, and then I started teaching up in Wisconsin Dells, where I kind of lived and commuted back and forth between Madison and Wisconsin Dells. So after that, I was married at the time for about a year, separated, divorced. I myself lived in Madison, and just the whole community, just kind of everybody was moving away, and I got into the mainstream of, the workforce and did that. Eventually got remarried, had 3 children. So for all those years raising children, finding time to meditate was it was interesting, to say the least, where before I get up in the morning, if I wanted to meditate, I would meditate in bed, lying down a lot, or when I got in bed at night. So it was still there, it was always there, but as far as teaching or anything like that, it was not something.